Some of you are familiar with Howard Thurman, an African-American mystic, teacher, and spiritual guide. Howard Thurman has written a lot of really great things in his lifetime. And once, in one of his writings, he described our lives as a holy adventure. In each moment, we are confronted with choices, Thurman says, some large, some small, that will shape what we and the universe will become. Think about that. Every choice that we make, every single day, awakens a new possibility for us in our relationship with God and in our relationship with each other and in shaping the cosmos. You and I as individuals, or we together as the church, may or may not be aware of how God is calling us every single day of our lives to make choices that will add a little more compassion or love into the fabric of this wonderful cosmos that we are a part of. It's important to get up every morning, brush our teeth, look in the mirror, and to be happy with what we see and to be aware that this is a new day, that I have new choices to make today, and today is an adventure. Last Saturday, the Recovery at Work Narcotics Anonymous group held their first year anniversary here at Bethany Christian Church. And I contacted the leaders of this group about the event, and they described it to me. It was an incredible event. People from Nebraska, Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Florida, California, and Iowa were in attendance here at that anniversary. The leaders who organized the event said the speakers touched many people's lives and they're still talking about it today. It was so magical to be able to host this event, they said, in the place where our weekly meetings are held. And they ended the note, "Thank you so much to the entire church, Bethany Christian Church, for allowing us to use the church for a truly inspiring event." Our partnership with Recovery at Work, Narcotics Anonymous, and Houses of Hope in our neighborhood is a great adventure. And it's a pretty new adventure for all of us. We're finding our way in this adventure. But this adventure is giving people hope and support to stay clean. In 2017, 1 out of every adult in this country struggled with both alcohol and drug abuse disorder. Drug abuse and addiction costs us, as a society, more than $740 billion every single year in lost workplace productivity, in healthcare costs, and in crime-related events. $740 million. And I am so proud, Bethany Christian Church, that you are willing and able to host not only NA groups, but AA groups who are helping people who are a part of this adventure. In today's gospel lesson from Luke chapter 9, verses 51 through 62, Jesus and his disciples are on their way to Jerusalem, having just been snubbed by a Samaritan village that Jesus wanted to go through because it was the direct path to Jerusalem. And Jesus thought perhaps there would be an opportunity to witness God's transforming work along the way. Much to the displeasure of the disciples who traveled with Jesus. Group. And by the way, I meant to say welcome back, Joe and Marnie. and Lisa and Russ, who now all joined us back together, and we're all going to get our heads together and show you pictures and talk about our event, but we need to do that first with each other. We did not go through Samaria. We did not do that. We went by way of Capernaum down to Beth Shan and along the Jordanian border, where we saw the fence that divides Jordan and Israel, and then through Jericho up to Jerusalem. So we went a long way, which is the way that most Jewish people traveled to Jerusalem from Capernaum and Nazareth in the time of Jesus. Luckily we had bus. They didn't. But if you went through Samaria, it's a hilly region. And Samaria was home to mixed Jewish blood that belonged to the 10 northern tribes of Israel. Not Judea and Benjamin, the southern tribes of which Jerusalem was located. So, Samaria doesn't throw out a welcome mat for Jesus and the disciples, but along the road someone shouts out to Jesus and says, "I'm going to follow you." And this person wants to be a disciple, but doesn't really understand the true cost of what it means to follow Jesus. And so Jesus says to the man, "Foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." And the guy probably is thinking, what an unusual response. This response has political overtones. And the people who circled themselves around Jesus would understand what foxes and birds represented. Foxes were political symbols for people of mixed blood who were anti-Jewish. John the Baptist called Herod a fox, Herod Antipas, the son of Herod the Great, who ruled over Galilee and the Decapolis and Perea in the time of Jesus and John the Baptist. And so this passage is probably directly referring to Herod Antipas, ruler over Galilee, whose administrative center was just north of Nazareth. You see a scene. There are 3 pictures here that we took. Sepphoris is now one of the international archaeological gems. They found a theater, but more important, a wealthy villa. Someone who, I think it's a 3rd century villa. But in the villa was a lot of symbols in the mosaics that spoke to the times and the wealth of the people who lived here. Sepphoris was also called the City of Peace because Jews, Christians, and Romans all lived in Sepphoris and trying to make it as peaceful of a place as they could. Antipas moved his administrative center from Sepphoris to Tiberias and built a city in honor of Emperor Tiberius of Rome, who was a friend of his. And Herod did that because he wanted the title of king, but Tiberius didn't give him that. Okay, back on script, sorry. Our tour group, by the way, spent a morning in Sepphoris. It's a beautiful, really hilly place that's nothing but archaeological ruins. They have one of the prime restored theaters there that seated 5,000 people. And Sepphoris is more than likely where Jesus and his father or family would have worked if they sought employment. Nazareth was too small, and Sepphoris was a modern Pompeii. Back to the symbol, birds. We've talked about foxes. Birds were a Jewish apocalyptic symbol that meant, that's an end times saying, meaning the end of the age is happening now in our midst. And that kind of talk was very relevant in Jesus' day, the first century. And birds were a symbol for Gentiles or Romans. Birds have nests because they can oversee what everybody's doing. They're high, they're perched high. We don't necessarily look, we don't acknowledge the birds, but they're there. And they are talking about us down on the ground. And they're able to see our every move. So it makes sense that this is a symbol to talk about the Roman aristocracy that was over Galilee at the time of Jesus. And there was a price to pay. If the birds heard you talking about Rome or Emperor Caesar Tiberius or Herod Antipas, if the birds heard you, there would be a price to pay. And for many, it was crucifixion. We in this country celebrate Independence Day as a festival of freedom. And we are a pretty freedom-loving people. And we don't like birds watching over us, making decisions about if what we say is right or wrong. But we in this country, in this day and in this age, are beginning to worry a little bit about the birds that overhear us or have some control over our elections, or who say to us, the press is fake, don't listen to them. And so I think that like Jesus and John and the disciples, you and I need to be somewhat aware of the birds in our midst. Opposing empire is risky business. The second and third would-be disciples get the same response from Jesus. The second man did not recognize the urgency of the moment, where the demands of following Jesus superseded the obligations of Torah and taking care of father and mother and children, brothers and sisters, and wants to have time to make sure that family business is taken care of and everyone's buried when they die. And then Jesus, okay, I'll follow. The third would-be disciple volunteers to follow Jesus, but wants to first be permitted to go back and say goodbye. Kiss my father on the lips, Scripture says. Meaning, I want to go home and say goodbye. And Jesus explains that to be fit for the work of proclaiming the kingdom of God, one cannot place the demands of family above the call of discipleship. These are three vignettes in the Gospel of Luke that reveal to us that maybe the choice of following Jesus is not an easy choice to make. And so in our time in 2019, we ask, what then is the price or the urgency to follow Jesus on the way? In the lesson today, Luke certainly emphasizes that discipleship requires a willingness to be faithful to Jesus and no one else. There is a sense of urgency that following the way of Jesus is of prime importance. It's radical. It challenges the status quo and tradition when those things are not serving the needs of people, but rather serve the needs of the empire. On this Sunday, before we celebrate the 4th of July, Jesus might be saying that discipleship, people, is of utmost importance. That's where our loyalty lies. And so that loyalty supersedes family, or job, or state, or nation, or even sports. I just threw that in to see if you were paying attention. Please don't tell Jack Ryan I said that. He's on the baseball field today. God's vision for the world is to create a world where everyone has the same chance to come to this table. And that is a world that seems like it should be so easy to create, and that is the most difficult thing for us. It's the most challenging thing for us to do, to provide a place where everyone can be equal in coming to the table. Discipleship, or following the way of Jesus, is our highest calling. It's our great adventure. So you don't have to have ever left Lincoln, Nebraska in your life to say to somebody, I have had a great adventure in my life. Because that great adventure is following the way of Jesus. It's learning about the way of Jesus. It's trusting about the way of Jesus. That is sometimes risky and challenging, and even sometimes costly. But let us take seriously that call, becoming disciples of Jesus and partners with God and each other in shaping the faith of the future and the health of the planet. That ends, I have one comment. And there is an article in the paper today. It is the front page article in the Lincoln Journal-Star on transformation. Folks, read that article. F Street Church is truly seeking to follow the light of Jesus to the poor of this community who have nothing and who've lost all hope. I have visited with the gentleman that is a contractor for that church and for many of the apartments in the 13th and G or F Street neighborhood. It is a neighborhood that is filled with danger. And it's a neighborhood that is filled with people who have no hope. What they are doing in that community is truly amazing. Brody, who had mentioned, is one of the colleagues in the Faith Partners program with me, and someday I hope he will be. Let us hear the call of Jesus to the work of discipleship, and let us trust Jesus to lead us in serving the community that we are a part of.